overlap in the Dresden Files, like Odin and Kringle, the names used to summon Mother Winter. I was wondering if that worked on a racial level, like that scene in Changes where Toot called himself a Polovoy, Sonya called him a Domovoy, and I know there's like a lot of, in mythology, there's a lot of races kind of like the Fae, like Trickster, Shapeshifter and stuff. Are they like any connected to the Winter or Summer Courts? Are they involved with the War with the Outsiders, or like the yokai?
Okay, let me see if I can rephrase this so that I don't just start talking and nobody knows the question. He's asking about the use of a lot of different mythologies in the Dresden Files, and does that extend to a racial/cultural level, like when Sonya met up with Tutu and called him a Domovoid. And yes, it does. I constructed the mythology of the Dresden Files to be inclusive rather than exclusive, and to figure out a way that I could make everything all work together in one big thing. So a lot of it is that there is a certain amount of supernatural activity or certain kind of supernatural being that's out there that a lot of different people have run into and have taken something different away from the encounter. My general theory of the supernatural stuff in the Dresden Files is that it's a blind man and the elephant situation for us. That's why you've got 3 different courts of vampires, but you've got the Hollywood vampire that looks a little bit like all of them, because the Hollywood vampire is the construct of people who have sort of survived encounters with vampires, in certain situations. So yeah, I mean that was the whole idea. There's some things that are very specific, but not everything is. A lot of things are just somebody from 5th century China saw this supernatural thing, and somebody else from 18th century America saw it, and they look like very different things to them, not because their thing is different, but because they're from different backgrounds.
Okay.
Right over here.
My question's not about the Dresden series, actually. It's about your Codex Aurora.
That's fine.
Is your Steampunk actually tied in with that?
Is the new Steampunk series tied in with the Codex books? No, it isn't. I had originally considered doing that, but decided that I was going to have more fun once I started putting things together. I decided to have more fun in an all-new world. So the Steampunk books will be out. I'm not sure when. I've got to finish writing one. It would have been done already because I had 3 weeks between the time I got back from Australia and the beginning of the tour. But did you know that teeth can explode, all by themselves? Teeth can explode. I didn't know it either. I mean, it's horrible. But anyway, I spent about 3 weeks on medically sanctioned opiates for this horrible dental thing, and I honestly meant to get the rest of the book written during that time. But I find myself sitting there with the laptop on my lap and thinking, I've just got done watching 3 hours of the Weather Channel, and it's still interesting.
Yep.
I mean, I know that there are artists out there who blend drugs and creativity, but obviously I'm not one of them. Anyway, but that'll be coming later. Right back here.
So, why did you decide to kill Lash when you did?
Why did I decide to kill Lash when I did? Because it was the right place for her to go. There's a lot of people there's a lot of times in these books where I'm writing along, and I don't specifically have plans for somebody to be dead. But then I'm in the process of writing the scene, and I go, yep, this is the only way this can possibly fall out and work. Golly, and I was kind of respecting you, Susan. But this is how it has to work out. I'm not feeling any mercy for people who are that many books behind. I'm willing to spoil anything up to Cold Days, but Skin Game is a new one. But, back here, black shirt. Has Molly Carpenter always been a key character to me, and have I ever considered removing her from the book series? No, she was there for comic relief when I started writing her. And then I realized what had to happen with her because it was such great conflict. Okay, you have to understand that basically when I'm writing the books and I'm writing along, one of the first things that one of the first paths in the decision tree that I have whenever I'm deciding on what's going to happen for the story is, will this make Dresden's life more complicated? And if the answer is yes, then that's a good first step. So the whole thing with Molly and Michael and the parents, that was a great. It's like, oh no, because Charity's just going to hate that. Yeah, that'd be perfect. So anyway, that was where Molly came from, and now she's. And once I realized she was in the series, I'm like, aha! There are things in store for her, and I started creating that, and then we got to where we are now, which is something that we'll see a little bit more of in book 16. So yeah, right here.
Is Bob gonna get a girlfriend?
Is Bob gonna get a girlfriend? That is a sneaky, you are trying to backdoor a spoiler in there, sir. And I'm going to give you no answer to that.
Okay, then are you going to write about the Jade Court?
Am I going to write about the Jade Court? We might find out more about them. They probably are not going to show up because they're very, very serious Chinese isolationists. Actually, they're not Chinese isolationists. They're Chin isolationists. They think this new China fad is it might not last. So, you don't ever see them leave the Yangtze Valley, but you might see one of their agents. Back here in the blue shirt.
When you all different characters have various backgrounds in your books, and when you try to get a character whose background is so different from yours, like problems and uncertainties you have, how do you sort of go about writing just an actual
Okay, when you're writing characters whose background is so different from yours and who have gone through things that you haven't, how do you go about writing that character faithfully? How do you extrapolate that into a character that people get? You pretend a lot. It helps if you've spent a good portion of your life pretending things. Writing really is just me playing D&D with my invisible friends and then writing it down. And you try and find sources of experience in your own life that you can somehow draw parallels to, even if it's something a great deal more significant, more significant and or traumatic has happened to your character. You've got to have something to where you can feel along the way. Okay, for instance, when I was a kid growing up, I got beat up a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean like a couple of times, 2 or 3 times a month. Basically every time they could catch me. I was a pretty good rabbit, but I had the bad taste to be the smallest kid in my class and the smartest kid in my class, and it's possible that I might not have known when to shut up. So I got to be very, very good at running and being a very difficult to catch opponent, but I also figured out what it was like, because there were times when I was just scared. And when I knew that there were guys coming at me who were going to hurt me if they caught me, and that went on until I was 13 and learned to communicate with bullies. When a guy at the bike rack pulled a knife on me, and I freaked out and started. I mean, I had a bike chain right there, but I freaked out and started hitting him with my bike, like the bike overhead like this, and screaming at the top of my lungs. And after that, I never had to fight bullies anymore. Which was really an odd thing, but anyway. Let's go over here, black shirt. Are we ever going to hear any more about Harry's dad? Probably a little, probably not a whole lot. Right here.
How does Kringle's gift-giving nature work with his fey nature?
How does Kringle's gift-giving nature work with his fey nature? For him, they're one and the same.
Okay.
I mean, that's his function.
Well, I mean, how does the exchange of gifts? Fays normally require an exchange of gifts, whereas Kringle doesn't. At least the mythology behind Santa Claus doesn't seem to be that way.
Well, but Kringle is getting a gift out of that. He's getting the faith of all those children. He's performing his function as a dispenser of justice in that role. Santa Claus isn't a she as much as he is sort of a minor deity that only children really get on with. It's probably softened Vaterung up an awful lot, but let's see, blue shirt back here.
How much does Latch know about Harry's interaction with Latch?
How much does Lashiel know about Harry's interactions with Lash? Everything. Right here.
In terms of being a knight, whether it's a knight of the cross, a knight of the black and Denarius, or a fairy knight, just how much beyond a vanilla human can one be to be that sort of knight? Are there any disadvantages to being superhuman, and is it the same for those 3 kinds of knights?
Good. You're a gamer, sir. Okay, the question is, when it comes to being a knight, whether you're a knight of the sword or a knight of the black and Denarius or a fairy knight, how far beyond vanilla human can you be and still do that, and is there a conflict of interest there? It's not necessarily a case of being beyond or being on a scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as existing on a slightly different bandwidth than a normal, on a slightly different frequency than a normal mortal does. And it's possible that the frequency that you exist on might be one that interacts strangely with the frequency of whatever knighthood you're picking up. And bits of that I'm not going to answer because we'll see later in the books. But anyway, let's see right here.
Speaking of sneaky questions, how long has the nemesis that Harry's run into, Volpe, been out on Earth, so to speak?
How long has a nemesis who we met in the last book been operating on Earth? Since the beginning. And I've already. No, wait, you're the Star Fleet, sure. Okay.
Why Chicago?
Why Chicago? That's a fair question. Why Chicago? Because my writing teacher wouldn't let me write it in Kansas City, which is my hometown, where I set the first story. She says, you are already walking close enough to Laurel Hamilton's toes that you don't need to set this in Missouri to boot. So pick another city. There was a globe on her desk. There were 4 American cities on the globe. I didn't want to use New York because the superheroes have that all sewn up. I didn't want to use D.C. because if you use D.C., you've got to do politics and you lose half the audience, period. I didn't want to use Los Angeles because then I'd have to learn about Los Angeles. So I said, how about Chicago? She says, fine, great, wherever, just not Missouri. I said, okay, Chicago it is, and that's why it's Chicago. You're welcome. Let's try one on the balcony. Up here, ma'am, with the coffee cup.
You've done a couple of short stories with other characters in the Dresden universe. Are you willing to do one with Mouse?
Am I willing to do a short story from Mouse's point of view? This is the problem with writing kids and animals, is they just upstage. I don't know if I'll do a short story from Mouse's point of view, but I am kind of thinking about a young adult series starring Mouse and Maggie. And, in my copious spare time. But I'm thinking about doing that because that would be fun. But anyway, let's get somebody. Maybe is there somebody? All right, you sir.
Wizards and technology. Do you plan to explore the more sciencey aspect of why they don't play well with each other?
Am I going to explore the more sciencey aspect of why wizards and technology don't play well with each other? Yeah, we'll get more into that because now Butters is on the job with this sort of thing, and he's actually interested in that kind of stuff. So, in his copious spare time, that he has now, we'll be working on that. Back here in the gray shirt.
I assume that when you're writing, you've got the voices of the characters in your head, and you have a fabulous narrator in your audiobook, Martha.
Yeah, that Martha.
So I'm just curious, now that you've been reading them for so long, you've got his voice in your head. Will have kind of a unique voice with him on your own.
No, I don't really have it in my head because I don't hear real well, and so I don't do audiobooks. I mean, like at all. I'll listen to them once in a while and just kind of appreciate them and go, aha, he did a great job with that. But it's not something I listen to all the time. So they're still, I guess they're still kind of my characters. I really like the job he's done though. And when he was reading Skin Game, I made him cry, so that was awesome. Yes, I made Spike the Vampire cry. Yes, sir, at the back in the ball cap. Are we ever going to see more of when Dresden was training with Justin? No, but we will see him training with some of the senior guys now in the future. So. Let's see. Let's do the balcony again. Up here in the blue shirt.
Given your prerequisites, no spoilers, I'll dance around with this for Spin Game. Given who the ultimate target is for Spin Game, and the person who has all the stuff, are we ever going to see, or are you going to add in any scions of that type of nature from mythology, or...
Oh, you mean like Percy Jackson style?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe. That could possibly be doable, although I don't want to take away from, because actually I'm planning on just having them show up. We're talking about the Greek gods, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I'm just planning on having them show up eventually. That's not till like book 19, though. You know, you gotta pace yourself on these things. Right here on the stairs.
To follow up her question about the stories about Mount, have you thought about doing any kind of spin-off featuring like the exploits of Molly or
Have I ever thought about doing spin-offs featuring the exploits of Molly or the Knights, specifically from their point of view? No, not like spin-off series. I think the Knights are fantastic characters, but I don't know if I could really build a series around them. There has to be somebody who's a little bit more touchstone than the average Knight is, because they're a bunch of odd ducks. They really are. Great ducks, but not normal.
Michael's normal.
There are a couple of characters who I do think I could spin things off for. One of them was in Skin Game, and I'm not going to say anymore because I like to tease. But that'll be the character I'm thinking of using for a spin-off series if I need to go do one after the Dresden Files are done.
Great.
So, let's see, right here. Hi.
I know authors tend to put a little bit of each character. If you had to choose like what trait that either your favorite character in the book has that you have, what is it, and vice versa?
She says the authors put a little bit of themselves into their character, or into each character, and if I had to pick one trait from the character book that most embodies me, who would it be and why? And I would say, let me think. I would love to say that I was like Harry Dresden, but I'm not. If somebody handed me Harry Dresden's power, I would be like a giggling villain. I mean, not even like a gray, reluctant villain. I'd be a villain who was having a ball. I'm going to go ahead and go with Bob the Skull. Bob the Skull is the voice of my inner prurient 14-year-old who just does not have any filters or anything and just says stuff, and there's a great relief in that, because I'm a demented person all the time, and I have to keep saying to myself, no, you can't say that, that's horrible. Bob the Skull doesn't have that voice telling him, no, you can't say that, that's horrible. Right here.
So, you've had Mab show up as the Opal Mab, and then there's Black Judge Mab. Are there other faces that will get, other aspects that we'll get to see her as well?
I've had Mab show up as Opal Mab and Black Judge Mab. Are there other aspects of her that we'll get to see? Yeah, you've never seen her fight.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Up here.
Are there any books or authors you will not read?
Are there any books or authors I will not read?
Yeah,
For fun? Well, I mean, I mostly read fantasy and science fiction. I mean, if it doesn't have a robot or a wizard in it somewhere, I'm going to be bored. Although I say that, and then I'll tell you my favorite author is Robert B. Parker. Who I just love his writing, and damn him for dying too soon. I had more books of his I wanted to read. And I'm a little disappointed Nace Atkins taking over for him because he's too wordy. Robert Parker was very, very good at never using 11 words when 2 would do, and I don't feel that his follow-up is pursuing that as avidly as he should be. But then again, I don't know. I haven't tried writing as if I was Robert Parker either, so maybe it's hard. Probably. Right here, sir.
What's your opinion on the Dresden Files TV show?
What's my opinion on the Dresden Files TV show? Okay, I can't say that. I'll say, because my first instinct was to say which one, but nothing's settled yet, so we'll see.
Whoa! Big spoiler.
We'll see. All right, it's Hollywood. Nothing settled till the check is cleared. Just getting the check is not good enough. It has to have cleared.
Okay.
But as far as the sci-fi series went, it could have been worse. You didn't see the first treatment, and I did. It could have been worse. The folks who were working on it, guys who were actually on the ground in Toronto doing the work, did the best job they could with the set of massive handicaps they were handed. And I can share my conspiracy theory at some point, and you can probably find it online somewhere. My conspiracy theory about what happened to the Dresden Files TV show. There's no proof for it, but I feel that actually weakens the conspiracy theory. So it's just a theory, but it holds water, I think.
Is Priscilla involved in that TV show?
Yes. If Dresden's not allowed to tell people about the brownies that cleaned his apartment, how come he's allowed to tell us as the readers? That's a temporal question. You have to, and to know the answer to it, you have to know where the books are coming from.
I want to know what happened in Milwaukee.
Yes.
Remember it disappears for 2 days?
In Changes we saw Ebenezer go over the journals with his masters and his master's masters, and he kind of hinted that he was going to hand the journals over to Dresden. Are you kind of setting up all of the books as the journals, or is there going to be any kind of...
Okay, the question is, a couple of books ago we had Ebenezer with this row of journals on the book in his office, and kind of including journals of his own. And am I sort of establishing the books as these are the journals of these people who've gotten involved in that? And that would be really slick if I did that. If Harry read those, golly, he would understand a whole lot of things that are inexplicable at the moment. Although you have to understand that the books are written from Dresden's point of view. So basically, anybody who's in the White Council, everything that they do is done in the worst possible light that it can be interpreted in, because that's Harry's viewpoint. He has some authority issues and stuff like that. So they're really not the people that they seem to be in the books, because Harry is completely biased towards them. Some of them are kind of close, but a lot of them are completely off. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast there. Yes?
What would Harry think of the new food at Burger King?
What would Harry think of the new food at Burger King? He would think the same thing. Okay, here's where Harry and I are on the same page. He would think it completely irrelevant because he's just going to order 3 hamburgers and a large French fry anyway. If you're talking about the new status fries, those are kind of tasty. And they have 30% less calories and 20% less fat as compared to standard French fries. So they're even healthier.
Does Harry care?
Not that Harry cares, no. I mean, he'll just go off and burn off the extra calories doing magic with it or something anyway. So.
Parkour!
Parkour was completely an inside joke between me and my son. When we played Battlefield 3, it was the first version of Battlefield where they started having, characters didn't just kind of do a Mario boing into the air, they actually started doing parkour over stuff. They'd vault stuff and leap over it, and it was hilarious watching somebody carrying a 50-pound machine gun and an 80-pound pack do a one-armed vault over the hood of somebody's car. So Jay we were both just laughing the entire time watching, because it's also funny to see like 50 guys doing parkour at the same time. So every time you hit the space bar, we wound up going parkour like that, parkour every time we did it. And then it just sort of fell into the conversation like, oh, we're going to have to get a spotter on top of that tower, parkour, and then we'll have to go over there, parkour. Hey, I think there's a sniper out there, parkour. Oh, no, totally correct, parkour, that guy. And so that's why that's in the Dresden Files now. Yeah, I'm a little bit nerdy. Right here, sir.
In your book, you said Bates made Glenn Harry with 3 requests. Doug, he filled 2. When he became Winter's Knight, that filled the 3rd, or did he lose his Winter's Mantle? He still hold 1 favor to the man.
Okay, the question is, Harry had 3 favors that he owed Mab, and he paid off 2 of them, and then he took up the Winter Mantle. Did the Winter Mantle, did taking up the Winter Mantle constitute a favor to Mab, or does he still owe her one? Oh gosh, I'm sure Mav's not finicky about things like that. Yeah, I mean, just kind of think that one through for a minute, who we're talking about. I'll let you make up your own mind as to but anyway. Yes, right here.
How do you research Chicago? Because you're really very good.
How do I research Chicago?
And do you like the city?
When I started, I researched Chicago by buying a guidebook. Because I lived in Oklahoma, and I was a student and had no money, and that was that. And as I got to about where I was writing the third book, and the first book hadn't sold yet, I actually contacted a few people online who actually lived in Chicago. And so for them, I'd be able to say, hey, I need to know what the east wall of Graceland Cemetery looks like. And they were like, I'll drive by it and take pictures. And I'll send them to you, I'll send them to you tonight. It's like, wow, okay, the internet's awesome. And then the book started getting published, and I sort of got a career, and then I had enough money that I could actually come visit Chicago. And then Google Earth happened. And so I got to have conversations like this with a guy who was a member of SWAT, who came up to me at a signing and said, hey, I'd like to know who you talked about to set up this tactical situation with the sniper on this roof where you specified exactly which street lights were out, because we sort of like to keep track of people who have knowledge like that. And I said, I didn't talk to anybody. I looked on Google Earth and just sort of figured it out. He's like, oh, God, I hate the internet. So, yeah, I read books, and now I visited. By the way, if you ever go to the aquarium, and you're down there in that level where you're looking into the tank through the glass wall, don't ask them what would happen if this wall would suddenly break. I mean, like if somebody would shoot it or something. No, I need to know for professional reasons. They don't joke about that at all. Right here.
As the LARPer and the gamer, if you could put together your own party for anybody on Earth, what would you play and who would you play with?
Okay, as a LARPer and a gamer, if I was putting my own party together from anybody on Earth, what would I play? Who would I play with? Are we LARPing or are we tabletoping? Oh, we're LARPing, and we're LARPing, and it's going to be a really high endurance LARP. And I want to get Pat, and I want to get Brandon on the team, and I'll invite Mike Cole along, and we'll have to go through some serious grinder LARP where Pat and Brandon can be the fighters, and me and Mike will stand behind them as healers and casters, and just sort of keep the bad guys just down enough that they have to keep fighting. Because that would be fun. Come on, Pat. You've been saying you wanted to get more exercise. Just get into this, Rothman. Tear that guy up. I swear, though, that Sanderson, man, it's like, how quick can this guy write? It's like I'm looking this morning, and I got a thing from Amazon. New book, Brandon Sanderson. I got on the plane and landed in Chicago, and another new book from Brandon Sanderson. It's like this guy. I think I'm going to get Rothfuss and George Martin, he's a little old for this kind of work, but I think he could be a lookout for us because he'd be sympathetic to the cause. And we're just going to have to rough up Brandon and slow down his writing speed a little bit. He's making the rest of us look bad. He's the nicest guy in person, he really is. With the hat on the stick. I don't even know what Brandon Sanderson did his writing excuses online where he talked about writing and world building and so on. And I'm not familiar with what his writing excuses were. Where he videotaped his classes and lectures and so on. I've got a live journal where I put a bunch of my stuff on it. And I've taught some classes. Some of them are even online. I mean, you can go find them. I know I did one, a two-part class called Blowing Stuff Up, was the first part, and then the second part was called And Making People Care About It.
That helps.
Right here.
Alright, so the Knights of the Cross. Terry done his little research project into the background of several of our source holders so far. How hard and fast is the rule that you've got to be descended from loyalty?
How hard and fast is the rule that you've got to be descended from loyalty to wield one of the swords? I'm not going to come out and tell you something like that. So far it counts, though. I mean, so far at every instance we've seen. that's been the case. Here at the back. No, down here. How far ahead do I generally work on the series? I've got my outline of the next book in as much as I wrote 2 sentences when I was 25 describing what the book was going to be. I've got that. Otherwise, I haven't started the new book yet because I'm still finishing the Steampunk. The next book is going to be called Peace Talks. It's going to be set in Chicago, and all the supernatural nations are having a summit to try and settle all the unrest that's happened in the wake of the destruction of the Red Court. So all the supernatural powers are going to be in town trying to come to terms with the Fomor. And basically what's going to happen is they're going to sit down together and have a reasonable talk and a nice lunch. And they'll have tea and everybody will go home happy and peace will reign. And nothing complicated at all will happen.